Hello, everyone. We are here with attorney Ruby Powers, and today we're going to talk about mastering adjustment of status interviews, best practices, and proven preparations. Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Eliana. Good to see you.
So she's a board certified immigration and nationality attorney, and she's been working almost 14 years with her own practice and Powers Law Group.
Yes, the practicing 15 years, law firm's 14 years old, and family-based immigration, as well as employment, asylum, investment, all different types of immigration here at Powers Law Group. We're full service practice. So we decided to talk about adjustment of status interviews because we've seen an uptick in interviews, and we wanted to sort of just do a primer on these things to consider. And so adjustment of status interviews can be for employment based, like the I-140, the visas available, or I-130. And it also could be because of a U visa or the you had asylum approved. So like there could be different reasons that you're having adjusted status interview. So when you get that interview notice, you want to be prepared as soon as possible. We've seen just recently, we've had very little notice, like only a few days, really, here in Houston in June and May 2023. But we're hoping that that was just a fluke and that it'll get a little bit better. But when you get an interview notice, normally you're given about 3 to 4 weeks, and that gives you some time to prepare and get your documents in order. So you really want to have a successful interview because this is their chance to ask you questions in person. You don't really get that many opportunities to do things like this. And this is a chance to have this dialogue and ideally leave the interview with an approval. If you don't come prepared or you don't have a successful interview, it could lead to a request for evidence, a notice of intent to deny. It could also request for a waiver, and they could just lead down a more troublesome path, which can cause more headache and delay. We've had some clients who either went with notarios or went on their own or just had a bad experience for whatever reason, and it led to more years of legal work and delay. And so just don't skimp on this process. That's basically our theme, right? It's make sure that you understand the importance of this. So you'll get the interview notice in theory a few weeks before the interview. But if you're also watching your USCIS portal and getting those emails when there's changes, that'll also give you a heads up that there might be one coming. The other thing to note is that we've been seeing a lot of interviews waived, where it means that they're not having the interviews. And so we're getting approvals without the interview. So that's ideal. But what we're seeing right now is that the ones that do get scheduled have something that they want to ask questions about, whether it's more the individual was in immigration court, they might have a crime, they might need a waiver, there might be something that they're wanting to go over with a fine tooth comb. So just because you get an interview notice, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong. I would just say be prepared for your interview. So as soon as you get that, what our clients do is we reach out to them and say, hey, do you want us to go to the interview with you? Do you want us to prep you? And we give them that choice. And not always are we available, but now that we have 3 attorneys plus other contractors, we're pretty fairly available to attend the interviews. Of course, it could be in other states. I'm sorry, in other cities, and there actually is a way to attend interviews by phone and as an attorney, so that also makes it accessible. So you need to make sure that you start gathering important documents. So I usually say there's 2 piles of documents. One, things they've already seen before, but they want to see the certified copy or original, which could be like civil documents mostly. And 2 would be additional evidence that helps establish that you're qualified. In many cases, if it's based off of marriage, showing proof of the relationship. Other cases, it could be like financially. Do you still have that job? Do you still meet the financial requirements to support them? And then it's also good to do a mock interview just so that you both feel, any individual feels comfortable, whether it's a petitioner and beneficiary, or if it's employment-based green card, or the asylum, or the U, or what have you. It's important to walk through what might happen in the interview, because when you go in, because it's so important, if you've already heard those questions, you already know what to expect, then you'll feel a lot more calm and happy, and it'll be easier for you to feel at ease through that process. So documents, so just a quick little idea of some things. Documents, I mean, bring your passports, bring your, even if it's old ones, so you can show your travels, you could show your legal entry, bring birth certificate, marriage certificate, divorce decrees, potentially the death certificate. Bring those civil documents to help establish that you have the relationship that you say you have, and those documents help show validity by whoever issued the documents as well as the dates. Additionally, think about what are you trying to accomplish. Like if you're doing a marriage-based green card, you need to have the I-130 and the 45 need to get approved. But if your I-130 was already approved, then you really don't have to worry too much about it. You need to focus on that 45. Or it could be somewhere along those lines. And that's generally what we've seen is that if it's family-based, maybe the I-130 was already approved, but we're going there just for the 45, which has lots of questions about inadmissibility as also as financial proof available support. So whatever that form is that you have applied for, and if it hasn't already been approved, you just want to make sure that you have updated documents and you can prove that you qualify. That's the best way to think about it. So with the I-45, which is the crux of the adjustment interview, you want to go over that application. There's a lot of questions on there. A lot of like, have you ever done this and have you ever done that? I mean, it sounds pretty scary. What I would suggest is just look it over. Like, definitely look it over. What I tell clients before they have a prep is to go through the entire application, become one with it. When we did this, maybe it was a year and a half ago, maybe it was 6 months ago, you might not remember all those questions that we had you answer. But it's important for you to have seen them so that when your officer is asking again, especially if there's language issues, that you're not asking like, what did you say? Or you're having to really think hard about it because you've already reviewed your application. So the 45, the way I describe it is like about a few key points. One, that your petitioner or whomever makes enough money to support you unless you don't have that qualification. That's a requirement. Two, you don't have any problems with the law, and that could happen if you have certain inadmissibilities or things like that, or you would need a waiver for. And then three, that that you have the medical exam, and so that's the other requirement. So some people submitted the adjustment without the medical, and in those cases, you might have gotten a courtesy request to submit the medical, or maybe then an RFE for a request for evidence. But anyway, bottom line is if you haven't submitted the medical and you get an interview notice, you better come with the medical. And at the time of recording is June 7th, there was a recent change that at the end of May 2023, you had to be using the March 2023 version of the I-693, which really that's the civil surgeon's job to give you the right version. But there's been times when changes like this happen, the civil surgeon didn't make the change properly. So what I usually say is make sure to get a copy of what's on the inside before they seal it, so that way you know if they signed it properly and what version of the form. Then you also want to have the financial evidence if that's a requirement. For example, for VAWA and for you and for employment, that's not a requirement. So to show that the sponsor. So the financial employment would be mostly for family-based reasons, and you would want to show that the petitioner can still sponsor with employment letter, verification, pay stubs, and that can be shown different ways. If an individual's self-employed, sometimes it might be hard to demonstrate that, but that's something that you definitely want to be prepared for. Now, some just general do's and don'ts. Okay, well, definitely dress professionally. I mean, be respectful. I would say definitely be business casual or better. I'm usually wearing a jacket, a nice top, and my traditional black slacks and heels. I wouldn't wear like holy jeans or pajamas or something because there's lots of discretion in this. So I would come and respect the process. And then I would also know the importance of your nonverbal communication, body language, especially if this is a marriage-based interview. They're watching your communication, how close do you sit to your spouse. are you getting along? Are you fighting in the interview? And so, but also, even if it's something else, they could be monitoring you to see if you're guarded, or if it looks like you're trying to if you're really, really nervous and you're not telling them the truth, because the officers are trained to monitor these things. And so just be aware of that. And it's very common to be nervous because it's really important and you're afraid, but that's what these preps are for. So make sure you're respectful and professional. And if you need to have a translator available, read the instructions on the notice of whether you should bring one with you. In many cases, you should. It just depends on what's going on at the time, whether they want you in the translator in there or how accessible that one is. There was lots of changes during the pandemic. For example, during some of it, you were not there. Usually, the process was you bring your translator with you, and if you didn't, then you wouldn't have one unless you were lucky and an officer spoke Spanish and you needed Spanish. Then during the pandemic, they're like, no, don't bring any more people. You don't need to. And we'll just call somebody. So there is a form when a translator comes in, and sometimes it could be for a language that's hard for them to get on their little call center service. So just be aware of that, especially if it's a language that's not very common and you need to have somebody to come in. And make sure that generally that translator is not really closely related to the beneficiary, so it doesn't look like there's any bias. And then definitely bring important documents, like we said, including the medical, if that's still needed. So a lot of the questions depend on what, it can depend on what applications are you going through. For sure, we're going through I-45. So like I said, there's like, how did you enter? When did you enter? What's your name? Do you have other versions of your name? What's your date of birth? Are you married? How many kids do you have? Like things like that. But then there's like all those other questions, like, are you a member of this, or are you a member of that? Did you do this? Did you do that? So those are the questions that they could go one by one, or they might just do a summary of a couple of highlight questions. So make sure that you have a good idea of what those questions are. And then if there is questions about I-130 or I-140, then make sure you have those prepared as well. Try to be concise and accurate. Don't ramble, don't answer things that weren't asked, and just, get to the point. Officers are on a tight schedule. Sometimes they can be very friendly and talkative and, just go with it. But otherwise, if they need to get going and move on, just answer the question and they'll move on with their job. And make sure that you're prepared for any red flags or inconsistencies. If you look at the application, you find there's a mistake, well, you can correct it in the interview. In fact, the officer is going to ask you, did you want to make any edits, because they're going to go over some of those questions. And it's okay, you can make edits while you're in the interview. If there was something of concern that you were worried about, then I would say definitely have a prep and make sure you go over those scenarios that could happen. And the more prepared you are, the better I've seen in my 15 plus years of experience. Make sure you actively listen, have clear communication. When there was those clear boundaries and masks and everything, it was really hard with different languages and accents and everything. But now things are getting a little bit easier post-pandemic. Make sure that if it's a complex thought and you can think through it and have done some role playing of how you're going to explain it, and just if you don't know what the officer's asking, or if you don't understand the question, then just ask for clarification. Now, if there were inconsistencies in the past between something on your visa application, your 45 or whatever, then be prepared to help clarify what that is. The officer is trying to get that clear. When you do the oath, when you come into the interview, you're before an officer, and whatever you say needs to be the truth, because they're taking note of it. Sometimes it could even be recorded, but in many of my experience, they're just taking notes and going over the application and not actually recording in any way other than that. And so there could be complex issues like 245I, 204L, registry, Western Hemisphere. It could be a criminal matter, whatever. And generally, those types of things, you need to be prepared. I would ideally have an attorney for those. And then also maybe even have a little legal memo to explain it. In my experience, a lot of officers are relatively new. They're learning as fast as they can. They're being trained, and sometimes they don't know the answer. So it could need to be moved up the chain to a supervisor, and you just want to make it easy to anyone who's reviewing your file to understand. Um, Responding to sensitive personal questions, you want to be prepared for those things. Some questions might completely be out of play and not being necessary. When an experienced attorney is with you, they can help clarify that with the officer, based off of relevance. But the other thing that can happen is they could ask you questions and then ask you to sign a declaration or a statement that the answers that you gave. So just be cognizant of that. Try to ask for a copy of anything that you signed, and before you leave the interview. And also, I generally ask, how the officer feels about the application, if they foresee any issues, any concerns, and try to get a good grasp of what's going to happen if there's going to be anticipation of a request for evidence, or if everything looks good. Most cases, they won't tell you that answer. They'll maybe say, I'm going to look at it after this interview, and if there's anything, I'll let you know. Or sometimes they'll tell you there is a request for evidence needed, and that they might give it to you in person right there in paper. So this is the reason why it's, if there's something tricky, or if you're a little nervous about it, you might just want to at least get a prep, and then maybe also get an experienced immigration attorney to attend the interview with you. And so when clients hire us to do a prep, we do like a mock interview, so they know what to expect. And I will tell you, I actually went through this process 20-ish years ago with my husband, and we didn't have an attorney prepping us or attending with us, and I was really nervous. My husband was nervous. It was really scary. Having gone to tons of interviews since then, of course they weren't mine. I feel I go in with ease and confidence, and I know what to expect. But that first time, especially if you don't know what to expect, can be very scary. But it shouldn't be, especially if you have some of these mock interviews and you sort of understand why they're asking the questions that they are. So that was a brief overview of the adjustment of status interview process. And we wanted to give that to you now because this is something that we're seeing a lot, and we wanted to get that out there as a resource with potential clients, with the community, and so that you know about it. And we're also going to have this presentation in Spanish, and guess what? We're back. We are back, people. We are going to be doing these on a regular basis. And so you're like, I wonder what happened. Well, we are here. We got a little busy, and now we're back. So the rest of this month, we've got empowering action and the writ of mandamus. We've been doing a lot of mandamus cases, so we want to let you know the power of that and why you might want to consider it if your cases are way outside the processing time or it's been taking too long. And June 21st, we're going to do Beyond Borders, Navigating Crimmigration. We'll have Senior Associate Cynthia Milian will be presenting that one. And then June 28th, I'll be talking about Unleashing Your Extraordinary Talent with the O1 Visa. So anyway, Ileana, I know you already have July and August and the future brewing, and we'll let people know what those are going to be. I mean, I think, thanks for watching. Feel free to share with a friend, watch our YouTube. How should they find us, Ileana?
So they can find us all the same platforms that we have already. And also, if they have any consultation or any doubt about immigration or any request about it, they can reach out through email and also at our phone number.
And what I realized is that the TikTok icon is not there, but we are also on TikTok, and we're doing updates on a regular basis as well. In under 3 minutes of things that we're seeing that relate to our clients' needs. So we are everywhere. Just look for us, and we want to be a resource. And if you have a certain topic you want to hear us say or talk about, let us know, and you can reach us at 713-589-2085. Well, that is it. You'll see us next time. So thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.